Hi, I'm Jean Tabeka. I'm an Agile Fellow with Rally Software Development. And in this Chalk Talk, I'd like to talk with you about the iteration retrospective. In another Chalk Talk, you may have heard me talk about the iteration demo and review. Both of these meetings occur at the end of an iteration, but they have a different purpose and a different audience. So let's talk about that. At the end of an iteration, we're looking back over what occurred in the iteration and how can we do continuous improvement, iteration over iteration, with regard to delivering value into the product. So the iteration demo and review had its purpose. Let's talk about the iteration retrospective. First of all, its intent is to very specifically look at the team agreements, and the team issues. There's a wonderful reference on this by Esther Derby and Diana Larson called Agile Retrospectives. And they point out in their book that the retrospective is not so much a project audit, but it really is focused on the team because team issues are as important as technical issues, if not more so. So our goal in the iteration retrospective is to bring the team together. That means that the audience or participants in an iteration retrospective are the team and then the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master acts as the facilitator to make sure that the retrospection occurs without any destructive or ongoing recrimination, so the information can come out. That means they're also very responsible for the safety of the environment, making sure that the team can really bring issues out without concern about trust or safety. What are they looking at? They're looking at any possible ways that they worked together as a team and how they could improve on them, what they could do as individuals to form more as a team, to move into being very high performing, to increase their what we can call team agility maturity. And there are some ways that a facilitator does that for the team. We call them different processes, and I want to offer a couple of those to you today as ideas for how you run your iteration retrospectives. So the first simple one is pluses and deltas. Pluses and deltas simply says, let us look at all the things that worked well during the iteration. And the facilitator just lists those out for the team, either by each team member reporting in a round-robin fashion or just calling out in a brainstorming. But we find out what are the things that worked well that we'd want to keep moving forward through our iterations. In the second part of the pluses and deltas, the facilitator, the Scrum Master, asks the group what didn't work so well, or what do we wish we hadn't done? Or what are things that we wish we had done? And we list those in the deltas. Out of this comparison of pluses and deltas, the team is expected to and is invited to come up with some recommendations of what to do differently going forward. I'm going to say something more about that in a few minutes. Let's hold on to that for a second. So there's another process a team can use, very similar to pluses and deltas, called wind and anchors. It just provides more of an imagery around the same sort of looking through and peering into what happened in the iteration. And that is thinking of the iteration as a voyage, sort of on a boat. What put wind in our sails? What really made this thing rock for us? And so we list all of those, again, either through round robin or just brainstorming. And then the anchors are, what are the things that really held us back from being as good as we thought we could be? So we list all of these things, and again, try to find, comparing the two, what would be ways that we would want to improve moving forward. A more strict approach on how to look at what occurred during the iteration and what we'd want to change is a technique I borrow from a book called The Art of Focused Conversation, and it's called ORID, O-R-I-D. And ORID is a very wonderful analytical way to slow down our processes of how we get to decisions by first starting with objective questions, sort of the what. What happened during this iteration? And then reflective questions. Based on what happened, there's this so what. So what did that mean to us? What was challenging about the what? What helped us? What hindered us? And then interpretive questions. This is, given what we saw as challenging as we reflected on the data, now what insights or trends do we start to see emerge? And then finally there are the decisional questions. So we go from the what and into the so what, through the gut is really our reaction, into the now what. Decisionally, what will we now do moving forward into future iterations? There's a simpler technique than that that also looks somewhat the same. It's called the 3 H's. And the 3 H's stand for what helped us during the iteration, what hindered us during the iteration, and what hypotheses would we have about moving forward. So again, checking in first with what went well that helped us, what hindered, what took us back or held us back, and then the hypothesis. What are all the possible new things we could do? Now I want to refer to that I mentioned earlier from pluses and deltas with regard to when we get recommendations. The intent is to find 1 or 2 new things to do in the next iteration. Trying to do too many at once can make it hard to figure out which new thing really helped us improve, which thing actually didn't work well. When you gather a lot of recommendations from a recommendation, as a Scrum Master or team member, think about starting an implementation backlog or recommendation backlog where you can rank things that you think you might want to try in the future. And then a final process I'd like you to think about when you're doing iteration retrospectives is at the end of the iteration retrospective meeting, pause and have opportunities for team members to appreciate one another. It's a very simple thing to do, and I found it's a great way to create that wonderful ending of the iteration. We're now done with it, and with this moment, we take an opportunity to say, Cindy, I appreciate you for the particular work you stepped in and helped me with regard to some trouble I was having with the wiki during the iteration. And then Cindy, as my team member, would simply say thank you to me, because it's a thank you for being acknowledged. I've seen a variation on this where we do apologies, where you can also say at this time, does anyone have an apology? And I can say, Nate, I apologize to you for having been grumpy when you were asking me questions about this particular module. I meant to be there to help you, and I apologize. And again, Nate's responses can always just be a thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that you were grumpy with me. So I hope in this Chalk Talk today I've given you a variety of ideas about how to run your retrospectives for your teams as they move through their Agile iterations. Thank you.